What's up, you guys, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be taking sort of a different approach to our rankings of the 2022 rookie running backs. We're going to be doing a tiers list. This is the first time I've used TierMaker here on the SFS channel. But essentially, the motive for today's episode is going to be to take more of a clustered approach and group these players together. We usually try and really sort through these guys' differences. But today what we're going to be doing is trying to kind of figure out how these guys can start to work into our Dynasty rosters and what advantages we can use to play them to for our teams this coming season. And obviously for Dynasty, we're looking much farther than that. So if you're new around here, as always, make sure to drop down, click that subscribe button, and join the SFS community. Also, the Discord server is in the description of today's video, so make sure to go check that out. Also, check out my social media accounts. In particular, Twitter is the big one I'm trying to grow right now. But with that being said, let's get into today's tiers. So I'm going to be kind of going in random order. Also, I apologize. You can see right here, Jamar Chase has found his way into today's video, and either me just being new to TierMaker or the fact that this just isn't the most user-friendly website in the world, I can't figure out how to get him out of here. So it was quite the painful process setting up today's video, but nonetheless, here we're going to be kind of, just going all over the board here and picking random names to address early in today's video. So the first name that we're going to talk about today is going to be Damien Pierce. And we're going to put Damien Pierce in the starting caliber level, the starting caliber tier. Before I dive into the tiers, again, this is just me being new here to the TierMaker list, I should probably explain exactly what these tiers entail here. So the elite tier is going to be your best of the best, people who have the potential to come out here and be a RB1 level player in year one, or not even necessarily just a top 12 finisher at the running back position, but someone you can maybe see finishing in that top 6 range, the upper half of the RB1 group. Then you've got your potential workhorses. Those are going to be guys who can kind of get into that fringe RB1 situation, or even find their way to get their foot in the door at the RB1 spot. Guys who are going to see potentially, again, a lot of volume, and they have the opportunity to make a very positive situation out of their team's landing spot with, obviously combining your teams with your skill set that you brought out of college. Starting caliber is going to be a player who I think has limitations. I think that there are risks associated with them, and they're not necessarily a slam dunk to be the lead back for their football team. They have the skills that we look for, the size, the traits, but they have to take that next step, prove they're worthy of those touches at the next level, and obviously then potentially become that starting caliber player for their team. A valuable handcuff is going to be someone who in the immediate future I do not see in a starting role for their team, barring an injury to the starting player. This is a guy who, maybe he has a significant hurdle in front of him to be the team's lead back, or maybe he just isn't someone that we see his skill set translating very well into being a starting NFL running back. And then lost in the rotation is going to be the worst of the worst here. These are going to be the guys that, as the definition is in the title, just aren't going to see the field very much. There is very limited upside, and in my estimation, a lot of risk with investing in these players because you've got they have their work cut out for them. So Damien Pierce is the first player we're talking about today. He's going to fall into the starting caliber role now. He's been someone that you can see in 12-team leagues. He'll go at the back end of the first round sometimes. Personally, I like to wait until we creep closer to the middle of the second round. I just feel more comfortable with the risk in this Texans situation waiting a little bit. I personally am not of the belief that it is a guarantee that he surpasses Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead, who are kind of, underrated in their own respects. Marlon Mack has been a really good first and second down running back through his time with the Colts pre-Jonathan Taylor, and Rex Burkhead has been kind of a pass-catching specialist and a player who has a fair amount of utility dating back to his days in Cincinnati and New England, and we saw down the stretch last season he got hot and started producing some pretty quality points. So Damien Bears, for me, being a very physical runner, someone who does a lot of things well that you like to see, is not afraid of contact, that's for sure. There's a few really impressive scenarios on tape where he caught the football where he easily could have been decked instantly after catching it, but kept his head and his eyes up and made the catch and made a play after the catch. So a player I really, really like here, but I do see a lack of guarantee here, and I do think there is still some risk despite the very high upside. So that's why he falls into that starting caliber tier for me, and not the potential workhorse, because, again, I don't see a situation where Damien Pierce completely wipes those other two backs out of the fold. I think that there is an opportunity to be the lead back here, but especially here in the immediate future, I'm not so sure I see him as that workhorse caliber player. So the next player I want to talk about here is going to be Keante Ingram, running back formerly of USC. He's going to land for me in the valuable handcuff tier. This is a player who I think landed in a decent spot with the Cardinals. I think that having Chase Edmonds no longer in that situation helps his chances of becoming the number 2 back on that roster significantly. But the main issue here is James Conner just signed a 3-year extension through 2024. So you're looking at a guy who, having a 6th-round draft investment, is not really supposed to see the field early, but I loved his tape. I love his skill set, his size, his ability to find the open running lane in blocking schemes. He's a smooth pass catcher, not necessarily the most explosive athlete in the world, but someone who has a lot of quality traits, and again brings those to the table. So I think he's got a chance here right away to potentially seize control of that number 2 running back spot in Arizona. And if something were to happen to James Conner, I think he's very capable of coming forth here in 2022 and giving us a few productive weeks here right off the bat. Kind of going right along with that, I'm going to put Isaiah Spiller, someone who I was not super high on in the draft process. I'm going to put him in the valuable handcuff tier as well. He lands with the Los Angeles Chargers, so you're talking about a guy who's immediately going to be stuffed behind Austin Eckler and everyone else. There is going to be some competition for that number 2 spot between having Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly in the fold. But being a 4th-round draft pick, you do have a respectable amount of capital investment. It's a player who, again, doesn't really have that it factor. That's the main reason that I really held my ground with not loving Isaiah Spiller throughout this process. He's a decent and capable pass catcher, and it's a bigger back, 6'1", 215, so he can put his shoulder down. It's not necessarily his best trait in the world. When he would try and play physical on tape, he wasn't just, knocking guys over, just being this absolute wrecking ball, but being that Austin Eckler is a smaller running back and someone who is definitely not a power back, if you're looking to grind a game out late in the 4th quarter and kind of have a change of pace back with not, usually you hear that term talking about those quicker, shiftier players, Isaiah Spiller is going to be that guy who can come in and add a little bit more physicality as opposed to, again, Austin Eckler and more of the, I really hate to call him a scat back. That's not truly what he is. Austin Eckler is a fantasy RB1, but someone who is a much more efficient player, let's put it that way. Breece Hall is going to be the lone player that I put in the elite tier for today's episode, landing with the New York Jets. Now, this does not mean that this is a perfect fantasy football situation, but watching the tape, to me, it's very clear and evident who the best running back in this draft class is. 6'1", 220 pounds, workhorse build, capable pass catcher, actually very good receiver. He's elusive. He can put his shoulder down. He drives his legs through contact. He checks all the boxes for me athletically, ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, showing that, next level ability in the open field to run away and not be caught by defenders. I love it. You talk about the Jets here, an ascending offense, a situation that's going to give the opportunity for this team to become more balanced and to play complementary football. That's going to be something that is so huge that New York hasn't had for a very, very long time. I actually really can't remember the last time I've said that phrase about the New York Jets. So the one red flag, the one thing that I think could derail a RB1 finish for Breece Hall this season, and again, this is all potential upside. I'm not necessarily guaranteeing that Breece Hall is going to be a top 6 running back, as I kind of alluded to when I made this tiers list, but I think he is the only player in this running back class that has the chance to finish that highly this season. Now, Breece Hall here, back to the situation, the one red flag, the major thing that sticks out to me as an area of concern is Michael Carter. How much is he going to dig into Breece Hall's pass-catching volume, and how many snaps is he going to take? Are they truly going to cut Breece Hall loose and let him be the workhorse for this football team, or are we going to have to sit back and watch a committee or a 1-2 punch? And that's something that could obviously put a significant dent into that situation. So the next player here we're going to talk about, obviously saying I only have one player in the elite class, kind of tips off that Kenneth Walker. For some reason, I've got this thing where I keep saying Michael Walker, and he's, a practice squad slot receiver. I'm pretty sure I've done this in another video, but Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, the player we're talking about here, not making the elites here. What's the reasoning for this? Now, I do like the upside with Seattle. Pete Carroll loves to run the football, play smash mouth, physical random football, and run people over all the way dating back to beast mode. You've had some Chris Carson here and there, some Rashad Penny, and honestly a plethora of other running backs that have come in because those two can't stay healthy on the field. Now you get Walker, by far the superior talent to all of those other names that have played in the Seattle backfield in the waking absence of Marshawn Lynch, dating back to, we're not going to go there because he retired, played for the Raiders after coming out of retirement, retired again, came back for Seattle in 2019. Wild roller coaster ride there. But Kenneth Walker here has the skill set. He has the explosiveness. He ran actually a slightly faster 40-yard dash than Breece Hall by a 100th of a second. You've got a player that has all of the makings to be a workhorse running back. However, and as much as I like the situation, the upside it brings to the table, the names that are alongside him in this backfield are what gives me some concern. Those names in particular being your Chris Carson's looming injury and health, his availability status, which I still don't know if we know the true answer to, and then Rashad Penny being brought back for the short term. So those players, if healthy, are going to be involved. Those players do get injured very often. For Chris Carson's sake and for, the argument of this video, I truly don't know what to say. A lot of, speculation is that he might never play football again. He might retire. Who knows what the situation is going to be there. But talking about the player that we do know, and if Chris Carson is there, I do expect him to get some involvement in this offense. With the player we do know, Rashad Penny, being involved, is that he is a capable pass catcher. He is a larger back. You could see him potentially vulturing some goal line carries. Whatever the case might be, there is a very real scenario that there are multiple nuisances in this offense, keeping Kenneth Walker back from being 100% of the fantasy asset that he could be. So in the immediate future, I've got him a notch below Breece because I think that the risk that those two players in the backfield pose to Kenneth Walker's value is greater than that of just Michael Carter, the individual. But Kenneth Walker moving forward, one cut, explosiveness, his ability in the open field as a playmaker. He's actually more physical than you'd expect for a guy who's 5'9", hopefully cracking 215 by the time he hits pads this fall. I think he's got a lot to offer. The situation has its major pros and its major cons, but I do feel strong about him as a potential workhorse. One player I want to talk about right now that I am very disappointed in his landing spot is going to be Jerome Ford. I'm going to put him in the lost in the rotation category here for today's video because he basically got pigeonholed behind Kareem Hunt for the short term. We'll see if he gets extended again by the Browns, and Nick Chubb being there as well. So for a player who I thought had a chance to be maybe in this valuable handcuff territory to potentially, if he got a great landing spot, maybe even in the starting caliber tier, being below two running backs of that stature and that talent is going to make a major obstacle for you to get on the field. So right now, I think the best case scenario is maybe the RB3 position for Jerome Ford in Cleveland. I'm going to keep him in the lost in the rotation segment there. Another player that I want to kind of move up the list here is going to be Tyler Algiere, going alongside Damien Pierce to a lesser extent in the starting caliber tier. Now, he didn't quite get the same draft capital investment that Pierce got, 5th round capital for Tyler Algiere, but this is a player who has a really nice physical skill set. And one of the terms you've heard tossed around a lot this offseason is the most pure running back on the Falcons roster. And the reasoning for that is because Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson are currently two of the players we saw on that team last year who aren't really your traditional backs. Mike Davis is kind of a bowling ball. He's a bit heavy for a running back. And you've got Cordero Patterson, who is this wide receiver running back hybrid, really a true special teamer returning kickoffs. I think he still has the highest kickoff return average rate in NFL history. But you've essentially got yourself a real legit running back here in Tyler Algiere. And again, that gives him a chance to play. And while it's not, a certainty or a guarantee, and I would say that Damien Pierce is someone who definitely should be drafted before Tyler Algiere because there is certainly no guarantees here. But you do see kind of that situation and that path being forged here where Tyler Algiere definitely has a shot to be the starter. Again, Not a super explosive back, 4.6 40-yard dash, someone that is maybe going to get caught from a trailing safety or corner when he's being chased down the open field, but he can run someone over. Very physical. One of the best plays I saw, not necessarily for a fantasy standpoint, but just a highlight of his, was after his offense had a turnover. He chased down the defender with the ball and peanut punched it out. He's a former linebacker in his college days at BYU. So Tyler Algiere fits in that starting caliber tier. Another player I want to talk about, who I still can't really tell where I am yet on Tyron Davis-Price yet in regards to consensus, but I'm going to slide him in here to the valuable handcuff tier. I've went back and forth with him between being a starting caliber and a valuable handcuff caliber player. I can really see the situation playing out in two different ways. You've got extremes on both ends. You see this play out perfectly in the 2021 draft. You've got Trey Sermon, the third-round pick, who is this hammer, supposed to be a guy who's going to be Kyle Shanahan's next dominant power back, going to take over for Raheem Mostert, and has a chance to be, this top-level fantasy player. And then you've got Elijah Mitchell, who comes out of nowhere, steals everything from Sermon, and Trey Sermon is just left to rot off to the side and literally touch the ball and see the field very, very sparsely throughout the season. That's how I see Tyron Davis-Price here. I think he is supposed to be everything that Trey Sermon failed to be in the 2021 season. To me, this is an indicator that Kyle Shanahan might just be giving up on Trey Sermon, which really, really sucks for a lot of people who drafted him. And for a guy this big, 232 pounds, running a 4.48 40-yard dash, he's a purely north and south player. This is not someone that's supposed to make people miss in the open field. Not going to be a flashy back whatsoever. But for that power role that Shanahan wants in his offense, you can definitely see Davis-Price coming in and making an impact, potentially seeing a high volume of touches in certain games this season. The one red flag, the reason he's a valuable handcuff for me and not a starting caliber player, is because he doesn't really care that much about draft capital. If he did, Trey Sermon would be the pick. If he did, Raheem Mostert wouldn't have gotten on the field. If he did, Elijah Mitchell wouldn't have gotten the chance to start immediately over Trey Sermon once Raheem Mostert got injured last year. The third-round draft capital investment is nice. It's an added bonus, but at the end of the day, it has little to nothing in regards to the guarantee for touches and surpassing potentially Elijah Mitchell in this backfield, who did a very solid job when he was out there and on the field for this team. So there's a lot of upside here. You could potentially be drafting, this year's Elijah Mitchell, because his ADP really isn't that high when you talk about a player who is really slipping. There's a variety of spots that he ends up being drafted on the board. It really is a league-by-league scenario. Probably one of the more polarizing players in this year's draft class. Actually, when I was looking at ECR yesterday on Fantasy Pros, the highest expert that had him ranked was 19th overall, and the lowest had Tyron Davis-Price ranked as their 68th overall prospect in this draft. So that's a range of outcomes of nearly 40 players in between that spot. So for me personally, I've got him in my low 20s. I think I might have actually just updated this and bumped him into the 30s. Excuse me. I said this wrong. He should be in my high 20s. He actually got bumped back in my rankings update I did yesterday. Now he's in the middle to low 30s. So I'm kind of in the middle of that. I think that once you start to get to the 40s range, you might be undervaluing him a little bit because he does have a lot of upside. But that floor is quite low, as we saw Trey Sermon last year. Let's talk some James Cook now. We're going to put James Cook in the starting caliber tier. Now, this is one of the more interesting situations for me because I think that there's going to be some lines blurred between, is Devin Singletary the starter, is Zach Moss the starter, is James Cook the starter? But overall, I think that James Cook clearly has the best avenue, path, and potential to be the starting running back, or let me rephrase that, the most valuable running back in the Buffalo Bills backfield this year. The explosiveness he has in space, the ability to catch the football, the ceiling Josh Allen provides to this offense. I don't see him having a ton of short yardage opportunities, and that sucks because that probably spills over to the goal line work as well. Whether that's going to be Josh Allen continuing to do the work himself, or maybe they'll actually give Zach Moss some games this year and not just healthy scratch him over and over again. But the point here being that James Cook is definitely, you can debate. He's the RB3 or RB4 in this draft class. Got a whole lot of upside. You see the Dalvin Cook in him, but he's just a little bit small and wasn't super effective when running the football at Georgia. 4.42 40-yard dash. You get that speed out in space catching the football, and you're going to do some damage. The Next player I want to talk about here is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders. And no, we are not sliding him into the starting caliber tier. He's getting plummeted down here into being lost in the rotation. Now, why? Why does Brian Robinson make my last tier on this list? This backfield in Washington has gotten excessively crowded this offseason for my liking. When you talk about the work that we expected Antonio Gibson to have last season to the reality that he had in 2021 with J.D. McKissic really eating into his pass-catching workload. The player that Antonio Gibson, we thought he could be out of Memphis with his former status as a wide receiver, he really didn't live up to that. It's really unfortunate. McKissic was split out in the slot a lot, and we didn't really see too many passes drawn up for Gibson out of the backfield that were able to be cashed in successfully. You bring that dynamic forward where people were drafting Gibson as an RB1 in redraft last year. And, again, the large basis for that was because of pass catching upside and volume. It didn't happen. And now you're talking about snatching goal line and short yardage work away from him even further. So this creates a situation where you've got Brian Robinson Jr., who I do not expect, both of them were third-round picks, by the way, that being Robinson and Gibson. You've got the expected first and second down running back, Antonio Gibson, and then you've got two choices on third down. Do you want to play smash mouth football and hand it off to the massive 225-pound running back out of Alabama? 6'1", 225, I believe, are the measurables there. Do you want to hand it off to him, pick up the first down on third and short? Or if it's third and 12, do you want to bring J.D. McKissic in and, run him out on some sort of a scat back route? And this is just eating. It's a three-way intrusion of people's fantasy workload and value, because you're getting Brian Robinson stealing a little bit from Antonio Gibson on third down. You've got J.D. McKissic in there stealing passing volume from Gibson as well. And then you've got Robinson kind of chiming in here on third and short, third and 3 and less than that, in your goal line situations. And you just don't really have a situation without someone having a significant injury and getting wiped off the field for an extended period of time, where you're going to see guys get reputable volume outside of Antonio Gibson. But then how valuable is that volume? Because it's probably going to be, for the most part, strictly first and second down run game based. So a lot to break down there. But Brian Robinson Jr., the talent is there for me. He's going to get on the field. He's a very good pass protector and blitz pickup. That's why they invested a third-round pick. And if you ask me, the ceiling of this offense, we'll see. Carson Wentz is going to make the floor probably just as low as it was before. The good is great for Carson Wentz, and the bad is ugly. Let's say that for this outlook. Another player who got lost in the rotation for me, a quick cover here, is going to be Ty Chandler from the University of North Carolina. You got pigeonholed behind Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison. There's not too much you can do with that until maybe Madison leaves when his contract expires, and you can become the handcuff to Dalvin Cook. But today, in the near future, for at least this upcoming season, he's going to be the RB3. And again, barring a Dalvin Cook injury, which he'll probably pencil him in to miss 2 or 3 games this year, Chandler will be get the opportunity to be a number 2 back for a few weeks this year. But if things are going properly in Minnesota, he's definitely on the lower end of this list. I'm actually going to toss Tyler Beatty into the valuable handcuff role here, which I think is a bit higher than a lot have him valued. Now, when you look at those two bottom tiers, you're thinking, wow, Tyler Beatty ahead of Brian Robinson. And this really comes down to what format you're playing in. Now, I will say that in my half PPR rankings, I do still have Brian Robinson ranked higher than I do for Tyler Beatty. But if we're talking full PPR here, in just situations that they're tossed into, this tier system makes things slightly different here. Let's be honest. So the closer you get to standard, the more valuable and weighted those touchdowns are, the more you're going to, preface towards the side of Brian Robinson. But for Tyler Beatty, I think he does something really well and really unique that a lot of the players in the Baltimore backfield don't do, and that's catch passes. J.K. Dobbins, it's not like he can't catch the ball, but coming off of a significant injury, kind of the skill set that Beatty has is catered to as being an undersized back, getting out in space, catching the football, and being elusive. So if you're playing in a full PPR format, I think that there's some value to be had here. You can scoop him up late, potentially late third round, even in the fourth round, 12-team leagues in those rookie drafts. Definitely someone, if you're looking for some depth at the RB's position, to go take a look at. We do have 3 names left in today's episode. We're going to toss Pierre Strong here into the lost in the rotation segment. How many running backs do the Pats need? I mean, off the top of my head here, you've got Damien Harris, you've got Ramondre Stevenson, kind of that 1-2 punch from last season. Both powerful players, not great pass catchers. But then you got James White coming back. They extended his contract. You got J.J. Taylor, who got some snaps last year. And the Pats also, drafted another running back. Went out and added another running back. So, for me, Pierre Strong is a guy who had some nice traits. His tape at college was pretty decent, looked pretty explosive against the level of competition he was playing at. But the situation in New England, they eat running backs for breakfast, and you're really going to have to carve out a niche positional role in that Patriots offense to consistently find work. I am going to toss, I thought about this really hard back and forth. Kyren Williams, I'm tossing into the lost in the rotation segment for me. Another preface I want to make here is that the order of the players in these tiers do not really matter. I just tossed Kyren Williams up here. Not at the end of the list, but in the middle there, rather. It doesn't matter. Don't read too much into that. What's more important is the actual level that they're placed on here. Kyren Williams, for me, it's not that he's lost in the rotation, but it's that, to me, the only real reason, if I was Sean McVay, that I'd put him on the football field would be to catch passes here and there. Similar to Tyler Beatty, but you've got Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers, who it's not like they're world beaters, but they are very skilled, talented guys who both of them can catch passes, especially Darrell Henderson, probably even better than Cam Akers. And for the lack of explosiveness that Kyren Williams brings to the table, I just don't see a world in which I want him out there if I'm, again, the Rams coaching staff. So he's, less explosive than you like. 4.65 40-yard dash. You're talking Devin Singletary levels of inexplosiveness. There's a reason that he has never really fully taken over that Bills backfield, which has been much, 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 much less talented than the Rams backfield in the last 5 years even. And then you've got the situation where you've got a high second-round draft pick in Cam Akers, who's entering into season number 3, should be fully healthy this year, hopefully. And Darrell Henderson, who's a very, very good reserve number 2 back. So Kyren Williams, for me, it's close. You could see that PPR volume carved out and slap him in this valuable handcuff role or, a situational player. But for me, that's not the case. And then here at the last player on the board, Samir White, maybe a little bit of a surprise. Maybe some of you expected him to fall into the valuable handcuff tier. But I'm putting him in the starting caliber tier because I see a path where he becomes a starter in 1 year's time. I've talked about this in a YouTube short, TikTok, even maybe referenced it in a video here and there. But the Raiders declined Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option. For me, that is huge. You have a new regime. It's no longer Mike Mayock and John Gruden. That's who drafted Josh Jacobs. You've got the new, Josh McDaniels regime in town here. And they're running the show now. 4th-round draft capital investment. Gives Samir White a shot for a year. See if he makes the most of his opportunity. And if he proves he can be the guy, you've got a 4-4 monster who in space puts his shoulder down, runs people over, not super elusive again, not someone who's going to create a ton of opportunities and make a lot of defenders miss with his agility, but he can be a bowling ball and just knock things over, knock them down, and if he gets to the 2nd and 3rd level of the defense, he is gone because he is a burner in space. He'd probably be a decent track athlete. I don't know if he ran track or not, but 4.4 is pretty good for a guy his size in the 40-yard dash. With that, Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option declined. It doesn't guarantee that he won't be on the team in 2023, 2022 is this upcoming season. But it does create a very real situation where, with the current RB market being as devalued as it is right now, teams not wanting to pay and fork it over to the position, there is a real shot that Samir White, they could go out and they could totally let Jacobs walk, go in the 2023 draft and draft someone earlier, and that's your guy. But I do see a role, a situation, a skill set fit that works here. And if that all comes together, it's a big ask, just like it is for Tyler Algiere, Damien Pierce, a lot of the Damien Pierce truthers out there who I want to be one myself, but I have to be, grounded to an extent and realistic to an extent and see the issues with the situation because this draft is ugly. There's not a lot of perfect fits and matches. These weren't matches made in heaven, if you will. So a lot of stuff to like on this board, a lot of upside, a lot of reasons to be optimistic, but you have to be cautiously optimistic because there's a lot of risk on this board as well. even with that elite tier. Breece Hall doesn't have a perfect situation, neither does Kenneth Walker, and that stems and flows down the entire chart. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate the heck out of all of you that stuck with me for this long. Again, go check out those social medias and the Discord link in the description of today's video, and leave a like if you enjoyed. As always, subscribe to the channel, join the community. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you got a question, shoot, I'll answer rather. Happy to be here as a service and as a helper for you guys. Also, big news, sizzlefantasy.com, my website. We are pumping out draft profiles left and right. Hopefully by the time that you're watching this video on Tuesday, May the 10th, the morning of Tuesday the 10th, or after that date, we should have over 40 draft profiles completed for this rookie class. I'm currently working on really building that strong infrastructure of our Dynasty Draft Guide profile. And SFS Gold members, for just $4.99 a month, get access to everything on our website. Super easy to cancel once, maybe you've got your rookie draft and then you want to take the next few months of the summer off, and then you want to start back up for the fall, or maybe you want to activate in August, get our redraft content as well. Whatever it is, you get everything on the website with sizzlefantasy.com. Again, $4.99 a month, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, we'll have 40+ rookie guide, rookie dynasty draft profiles in there, as well as updated top 60 rankings for this 2022 class. So exciting stuff. Go check that all out, and I'll see you guys there. Peace out.